Today on the Weekly Strange, we'll take a look at some newly released video footage taken from a U.S. Navy ship back in 2023 that shows a UAP, or UFO, in the skies after it reportedly emerged from the sea. What is it that makes the coast off of Southern California such a UAP hotspot? And is there more to this story? We'll find out today on the Weekly Strange. Good evening and welcome to the Weekly Strange. I'm your host, Jon F. Merz, author, actor, adventurer. Now, before we begin tonight, I'd like to ask you to please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our uploads when they occur. All right, so let's talk about the coast of Southern California for a moment. This area has been a notorious hotspot for UFOs, nowadays known as UAPs, activity for decades. It's also where we've gotten some of the best video footage of these craft, thanks to the technology aboard U.S. Navy ships that enables them to capture these things on screen. And therein lies the answer, right? There's a significant military presence in Southern California, especially off of San Diego. Naval Base San Diego is the principal home port of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, comprising fully 1/4 of the entire Pacific Fleet at its docks. Now, the entire Pacific Fleet has 200 ships, and roughly 50 of them are docked at Naval Base San Diego. That's an astonishing amount of firepower, and these things get all of their ammunition from nearby Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach. Also nearby is Naval Base Coronado, which is an amalgamation of 8 installations. There's an air station, amphibious base, firing range, numerous training complexes, including U.S. Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, which is where Navy Special Operations candidates like SEALs, SWCC, which is Special Warfare Combatant Craft Crew, undergo their rigorous pipeline training to become elite warriors. In addition to these locations, there are many others located nearby. So, from a strategic or research perspective, it's somewhat understandable that these UAPs would be interested in buzzing the area around there. Now, back in 2004, we got our first glimpse at these phenomenon when footage reportedly taken from pilots based on the USS Nimitz was released and showed what looked to be a white tic-tac flying all over the sky and confounding the pilots with its bizarre aerial maneuvers.
Dude, that is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing. It's rotating.
Then years later, in 2019, the USS Russell, which is an Arleigh Burke-class Aegis-guided missile destroyer, shot that green luminescence video purporting to show triangular or pyramid-shaped craft in the sky. Now, that 2019 video footage is its own source of controversy, with some experts claiming that it just looks and behaves exactly like a commercial aircraft. Now, in addition to this latest footage, which we'll get to in a moment, the area all around Southern California has long been associated with a tremendous number of sightings, reports of strange lights in the sky, and much more. Now, certainly, a fair number of these might be attributable to military activities that are not disclosed to the public. And that's not necessarily the Navy or the government or another military branch being nefarious, operational security demands a fair bit of misdirection in order to safeguard secrets, especially when it comes to national security. But even taking into account the likelihood of military activity accounting for a fair number of those sightings, plenty more still remain that are up for serious speculation. And herein lies the rub, right? Like with any sort of mysterious phenomenon, all of these accounts of UAPs don't have to be true. In fact, you could literally discount every single one of them except one. And that one event being true would be enough to fundamentally shake the foundation of everything we know. Just like with the Bigfoot phenomenon, just like with every other sort of paranormal or strange thing that happens across the planet. If just one of them happens to be true, then, well, there you go. So to this recent footage now. This comes to us from the USS Jackson, which is an Independence-class littoral combat ship. These ships are some of the most high-tech things that we have. They're designed for near-shore stealth operations, special operations, insertion and retrieval, helicopter operations, reconnaissance, surveillance, and much more. They're small, agile, and fast, relying on speed and stealth as part of their defense, rather than, say, bristling with tons of seaborne defensive platform weapons. This footage, taken in 2023, was released by documentary filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, who obtained the footage from a sailor who was stationed aboard the Jackson at the time of this incident.
The VVSS team.
That like 22,000 feet.
That shit took off earlier.
Now, according to Corbell, the sailor worked in the Combat Information Center, which is known as the CIC, sort of the nerve center of the ship. And he and his teammates were actively tracking not just the one object seen in this footage, but 3 more in addition to it. And what makes this footage compelling is that it shows these craft emerging from the water and lifting skyward, as well as the reverse, leaving the sky and diving into the ocean itself. The footage is reportedly taken using FLIR, forward-looking infrared, and aside from the craft itself, there are no heat plumes or any sort of visible propulsion systems. Nothing on the video appears to be any sort of aircraft that could be manufactured using known technology, which leaves us with the obvious question of, if not from here, then where? And what about the video that shows these craft leaving the ocean and returning to it? Well, for years there has been rampant speculation that there exists some sort of underwater base for these crafts and their, well, let's just call them owners, to hide in. The location of this base has been rumored to be off the coast of San Diego, exactly where all of these sightings are taking place. Now, while some would obviously discount the existence of such a base, video showing craft entering and exiting the water would certainly be real enough reason to investigate the theory further. And wouldn't it make sense to have such an installation for anything visiting us from beyond our planet? After all, the ocean is enormous and relatively safe from surveillance by satellites, which can only penetrate and see to roughly 45 meters depth anyway. We have more surveillance directed toward the sky than we do toward the ocean. And that makes a huge difference when you're trying not to be noticed, which I'm assuming these visitors would like to not be noticed. Now, bear in mind that the USS Jackson footage is not the only video from 2019 that exists. There was another event from the USS Omaha, also operating off the coast of San Diego, that showed a craft tracked across the sky before it dove and disappeared into the ocean below. That footage, as well as the most recent, have spurred former U.S. naval officer Tim Gallaudet to criticize the Department of Defense for not doing enough to research the obviously advanced capabilities of these craft, as well as take steps to mitigate any threat they might pose to us. In addition to the base that many believe exists underwater near San Diego, others are rumored to exist near the Baja Peninsula and, of course, Malibu. Now, before you get all, whoa, Chad, hey, bro, on me about the Malibu thing, Malibu is also located between Los Angeles Air Force Base and Point Mugu Naval Air Station. Point Mugu was recently merged with Naval Base Ventura County a few years back. These are more locations that might be of interest to visitors, keeping tabs on the activities that occur at these military bases, especially since Point Mugu is one of the main areas where advanced weaponry is tested during aircraft operations. Point Mugu also houses advanced drone operations with the MQ-4C Triton and other drone platforms that are used as ISR with 24/7 capability and 80% time on station. In other words, there's an awful lot of advanced technology being both tested and deployed at these military bases. It would be only logical for any sort of rational thing to want to keep tabs on the development of these weapons and tech, for the same reason that the Russians park fishing trawlers off the coast in international waters. They're gathering intelligence. Which, of course, prompts many other questions. For example, why? What would they use that intelligence for? Are they using their proximity to these military bases to test our capabilities or improve theirs? After all, if we can track them using FLIR and radar to a certain extent, then certainly they would want to presumably improve upon it to the point where we were unable to track them. Perhaps this is their version of our Skunkworks program that developed stealth technology years back. Station craft here that can buzz these installations and even fly around, testing their new technology even as they monitor our development. It would certainly make sense. It would even be wise to do so if for no other reason than for their own protection. Who knows what sort of advanced tech weaponry we're working on? Again, to borrow from the world of human intelligence gathering, we were forever keeping tabs on the Russians, monitoring their research even as we tested our own against theirs. So doesn't it make sense for an otherworldly civilization to want to do the same with us? For all we know, we might just be that noisy neighbor that you always complain about as being too uppity, too rambunctious, too much of a potential threat. In all likelihood, I fully expect these types of sightings to continue in the coming years. The proximity of these sightings to these military installations is not just a coincidence, but intentional. As such, it will be interesting to see what new videos will come out from both military sources and civilian sources alike. In the meantime, keep your eyes peeled to the sky and the water. You never know where that next one might come from. That's going to do it for this episode of The Weekly Strange. Please be sure to check out new episodes of our other shows, like The Other Side of Midnight, where I talk to callers all about their crazy, strange paranormal experiences, and The Hunted, where I spotlight accounts of fugitives who are to this day still on the run from justice. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new episodes. Oh, and I'd really appreciate it if you helped spread the word about this channel. If you enjoy these shows and what I'm doing with them, please let others know. Thanks very much for watching and listening. I'll see you on Friday for a new episode of The Other Side of Midnight. Good night.